Hello, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a simple but really profound idea from the Bible. What does it actually mean to live in God's blessing? We're going to see how the story of creation itself can show us a path to a life of peace. One that's free from that constant pressure to achieve.
So let's start with a question that might sound a little strange at first. We usually look to experts and self-help books to deal with stress, right? But what if some of the deepest wisdom actually comes from the natural world? What on earth could fish and birds teach us about living a life without anxiety?
Well, to find the answer, we have to go way back. All the way back to the beginning, to the book of Genesis and the story of creation. And we're going to zero in on one particular day, the fifth day. This was the moment when God turned his attention to the huge, empty spaces of the sky and the sea. And with just those words, boom, an absolute explosion of life. The Bible says the world was suddenly teeming with creatures. This paints such a beautiful picture of God's character, doesn't it? He's a God who fills what is empty, not with just a few things, but with this incredible abundance of diverse and vibrant life. And after creating this amazing ecosystem, everything from the giant sea creatures down to the tiniest birds, God just steps back, looks at it all, and says, "That is good." Now, this wasn't just some casual comment. It was a statement of deep divine satisfaction. The whole system was working together in perfect harmony. It was a masterpiece, full of artistry, wonder, and even joy.
But God didn't just stop at creating. This moment on the fifth day, it also holds a very important first, something that would really define his relationship with all of creation from that moment on.
Yep, you heard that right. The very first time the word blessing ever shows up in the Bible, it's spoken over the fish and the birds. It's one of those surprising little details, but it's crucial for helping us understand what this word really means.
You see, a biblical blessing isn't just a nice thought, like saying, "have a good day." It's an active, powerful promise from God. It's a word that once it's spoken just keeps on working through all of time, making life and fruitfulness possible. The fish and birds were blessed to be fruitful and multiply, and believe it or not, that divine word is still working today.
So this ancient idea of a blessing actually presents us with a choice. It's a fundamental contrast between two totally different ways of approaching life. You could call it a tension between how the world usually defines a good life and how the Bible describes it. This quote from a biblical scholar just gets right to the heart of it. We talk about success, which is something we go out and achieve. They talked about blessing, which is something they received. The source of all the goodness is completely different. And that changes everything. Think about it like this: two different paths. The path of success is all built on my effort, my strength. And because it all depends on me, it just naturally leads to anxiety. Can I keep this up? What happens if I fail? But the path of blessing is totally different. It's based on God's grace, and it relies on my trust in Him. And the result isn't frantic worrying, but a deep sense of peace and gratitude. This ancient proverb just sums it all up perfectly. It's saying that a truly rich life comes as a gift from God's blessing. And all our own stressful striving, that human toil, that's what we call hustle culture or burnout today. And the proverb says that kind of toil, it adds nothing to the real richness of life. It is a complete and total shift in perspective. Okay, so let's take this from just being a concept and look at a real-life story. The New Testament gives us this perfect picture of the shift from a life of toil to a life of blessing, and it's all through the experience of a fisherman named Peter. So Peter's story starts with total failure. He's an expert fisherman, he's worked all night long, and his nets are completely empty. He's exhausted and has absolutely nothing to show for it. Then Jesus gives him this simple command that goes against everything Peter knows as a professional. And right here, this is the pivot point. Peter pushes aside his frustration and he chooses to trust. His words, "because you say so," change absolutely everything. The result is just this overwhelming boat-sinking abundance, a perfect picture of a blessing that goes way beyond anything human effort could ever accomplish. So what does all of this mean for us right here, right now? Well, Peter's story on the water isn't just some historical event. It's an open invitation for every single one of us to live inside that exact same promise of blessing. And that's really the key, the shift from an anxious life of striving to a peaceful life of trust. It's all found in those simple words. It's about taking on this posture of saying to God, "Look, my own efforts have come up empty. My own understanding is so limited. But because you say so, I will trust you."
This is such a powerful image to hold on to. The very last thing Jesus did on earth wasn't to give one final command or one last piece of teaching. It was to extend his hands and bless his followers. And the Bible says he was still blessing them as he ascended into heaven. It's this picture of a continuous, nonstop promise of grace being poured out for anyone who's willing to receive it.
And so we'll end with this thought. We spend so much of our lives striving and earning and worrying. But what if the birds and the fish have known this secret this whole time? What if the best kind of life isn't about achieving success, but about learning to live inside a blessing that has been there, waiting for you all along?